Hello and welcome back, everyone. So today we're going to be planting a McIntosh apple tree. Now, many people think spring is the time to be planting plants, and it is. However, I would argue that fall time is better for planting things like your fruit trees, perennials, shrubs. And the reason for that is the ground is consistently warm, unlike springtime where it's still cold from winter. The ground in the fall is a less shock on the plants because it's warmer, allowing your plant's root systems to get established that much quicker. So you just bought your fruit tree. Where do you want to plant it? This is where some good research comes in. For instance, here, this used to be a little pathway probably for the tractor for the barn that was over here. And a good thing to do, I mentioned it before in other videos, is to use stakes to see roughly how big this plant's going to get. For instance, this gets 8 to 10 feet wide. So what I did is I used a couple stakes, set them out just to see roughly how big it would get, to see if this is the spot that I want to plant this tree. Now, apple trees, add that to the soil a little bit. Some roses come on rootstock. So a McIntosh apple tree was grafted on this whatever rootstock this happens to be, and it's bulbous looking. So when we go to plant this, you don't want to plant above the graft, because what could happen is where that graft is could rot, and then whatever plant the rootstock happens to be from will come up, and you won't have a McIntosh apple tree. You'll have something else. So keep that in mind, and that applies to any grafted plant, such as roses, other apple trees. If it rots at the graft, you won't have the same type of plant because that rootstock will push up whatever that rootstock happens to be. Now, when planting a new plant, go ahead, add some compost into the ground. What I do is I just loosen up the soil in the hole, add some compost on top, and just mix it in. And the reason you want to mix it in is due to the fact that all the new compost doesn't have all the organisms in it like that old soil has, that you dug out of the ground or you mixed in. And that's going to allow, the mixing is going to allow all those soil microbes to aid in the root development of your new plants. And so we dug our hole. When you put the plant in, especially a grafted one, make sure it's at least sitting above the highest part of the soil, because this is going downhill. I want to make sure it's above the uphill section. Then go ahead, fill in the hole. Things such as trees, you're going to want to go a little bit above ground level because we don't want to firm in the plant. So I make a little mound here just to help firm it in. Now, when you decide to firm in your tree, some people like to use the side of their foot. Don't do that, because you're going to have to keep pressing towards the tree. So instead, to get a nice firm set of the soil for your tree, your tip of your toe should point towards the tree and just go ahead and firm it in all the way around. Nice and easily. That's pretty well firmed in. Didn't take long at all. Now, you could go ahead and leave your tree, but a good thing to get into is staking your tree and stake it into the prevailing wind. Here, it comes from the west and the south. So that's where I'm going to want to point the tip of this stake. Now, don't overstake your trees. And the reason for that being is you see these trees with 4 or 5 stakes around them. Overstaking does no good for the root system. The roots of that tree won't go down nice and deep. It won't anchor the tree into the ground. So what will happen is that mature tree, because it was overstaked, a good wind will come and it'll uproot that tree. So 1 stake is good enough. Stake it into the prevailing wind. Now, they do make tree ties. Tree ties are thick pieces of rubber. You don't want to use twine, rope, anything hard, because what will happen is the tree will rock back and forth into the wind. And eventually that twine or the rope will dig into the tree, possibly causing bacteria, fungus, a virus to get into that tree and kill the tree. Now, I don't have tree ties, but I have this rubber tie. So to prevent this metal stake from rubbing against the tree, I'm just going to wrap the rubber around the tree a little bit. And then tie this rubber tie to the stake. Let's see how tight I can get this. You don't need to go overly tight, just enough. And now, when this wind blows, it's staked just enough where it has some support, but it can even move on the bottom a little bit. So when that wind comes, this tree will grow a stronger root system. I won't do it on camera here now, but after your plant's firmed in, it's staked, go ahead and water your plant in heavy like any other plant. It'll help get a good root system established. And then if you're going to go ahead and mulch with something like wood chips, lay your wood chips around the base, but leave at least a couple inches around the trunk of the tree. Because if you don't, what could happen is moisture could get in there, because wood chips are a moisture retention type material, and your tree could rot. So keep that in mind. Always leave at least a couple inches around the base of the tree. That's it, everyone. Thanks for watching, and until next time, bye-bye.